MIM Chronicle or IR Chronicle is a game developed by Kogato Studio. You wouldn't know who they are since most of their games are pretty unknown and have never left Japan. But miraculously, this game caught Axis Games' attention and they decided to localize it to North America. So the big question here is this a good game? Because if somehow you ended up in this video, it might be because you probably heard of it before. You may have also made a little research on it, finding out that it was panned by critics with negative reviews. Well, let me tell you something. In my opinion, it's a good game. The problem with most reviewers is that they misunderstood this game. You can't take it seriously. It's sort of like a comedy. And that's what really stands out on MIM Chronicle, the story and the characters. They are hilarious, they are fun, very likable. Come on, the main character is always pissed and everything seems to infuriate him, especially his co-star who hires him as her bodyguard for her special mission. And the way he gets angry most of the time is extremely laughable. Another thing to note is that this game has an amazing voice acting cast in English, something that usually not happens in rare and unknown games like this. We have the talents of Johnny Young Bosch, Laura Bailey, Karen Strassman, Wendy Lee, Liam O'Brien. I mean, seriously? Yes, seriously. So, if you're gonna play this game, be aware that it's a comedy and that, as a matter of fact, that is its strong point. The music and the graphics are fine. I have no praise for that, nor do I have any complaints. So what's left? The core of a video game. The gameplay, especially the battle system. And the very reason why this title in particular received so much negative criticism. First of all, it's an action RPG with your classic 4-party members, in which 3 of them are controlled by an AI. But the biggest complaint everyone has is how dull the combat feels most of the time. You literally go around smashing everything with your sword, while your party members can every now and then do absolutely nothing. Of course, you can change these things in the menu in order to make them act with certain patterns, but it doesn't work all the time. So yes, it's a little annoying. Not frustrating or hard at all, just plain tedious sometimes. But what's more tedious is the dungeon exploring. There's no music in most of them, and the random encounters seem to be more annoying than in other games. Perhaps because once you get into battle, you already know it's gonna be tedious. Nevertheless, I think the critics went too far in this game. It's not as tedious as they make it sound, so it's not as dull either. So why the negativity towards it? I really don't understand. It's a pretty fun game that I would recommend to anyone looking for a short adventure to have a good laugh, since the game has a lot of really hilarious moments, and enjoy a simple gameplay with nice story and well-developed characters. In conclusion, just go and play it to at least have your own opinion about it. Hey guys, what's up? Today I want to talk to you about a certain game called Cosmic Star Heroine. That's a game that was released earlier this year in the US by American people, obviously, and it's an indie RPG. And that's fantastic because it's a great game. I finished it just last night and I was enchanted by it. It's a great video game that I am about to recommend the entire video. But unlike many other vlogs that I do, in this one I'm gonna show gameplay because I think a lot of people are not familiar with that game, not yet, and they need to know because this is not a masterpiece, but it could very well be near one. And that is Cosmic Star Heroine. Well, first of all, it was made in a Kickstarter. That's right, and a lot of people supported the game because when I finished it, the credits rolled on and then these people who made the game started putting a huge list after list after list with the names of the people who supported them on the Kickstarter. And I saw, wow, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, probably thousands, and that's cool. I don't know, I am not a game developer, but I am an independent artist, and that filled me with joy to see so many people supporting a project. That was so cool, man. That was so cool. And to see that all these people supported this great project, that's even better. That's even better. So Cosmic Star Heroine, what is this? It's an indie RPG. It's a turn-based RPG. The battle system is very, very similar and highly influenced by Chrono Trigger, but I don't know, I like this one better than Chrono Trigger because there's just so much about it. Your characters have these little slots in which you can equip attacks or actions. There aren't any just attack, defend, and use item actions predetermined in each character. No, like in many other turn-based RPGs. No, everyone has their own box in which you can just equip abilities like using items or defending or attacking or using a skill or buffing. A huge variety, and you can just use everything about these slots to your advantage to win your battles. There are no random encounters. You just go, like in Chrono Trigger, you go and walk, and whenever you approach a group of enemies, you start the battle. You can't run away from these battles. And it doesn't matter because I don't know what the battle system has that it's so goddamn addicting. It's so goddamn good that you just want to get into battles as often as possible, and I mean it. I mean, I'm not gonna say I wish there were random encounters because some of the battles may take too long depending on the difficulty you're playing. Warning, do not play this game on easy mode. Don't do that. I started playing on easy mode and it was easy as fuck. Like seriously, I got to a point where I wasn't enjoying it, so I put up the difficulty to normal, and well, it became a reasonable challenge. Still easy, but reasonable nonetheless. And there's also a hard mode, and maybe a lot of you will probably enjoy playing this game if you're planning on doing so on hard mode, because it's challenging, it requires a little bit of strategy, and it's just the main point of this game, the best trait this game has is the battle system, and probably the second best trait will be the soundtrack. I praise the people who made this amazing soundtrack. It's so retro, so 80s. Oh my god, I love the soundtrack of this game, and the characters are great. I mean, you can play this game with aliens, with people from other planets. You have up to 10 party members in total, and during battle you can only use 3, including the protagonist, which is Alisa, a great character in my opinion, and I just loved her, and I like the idea of mixing several races from different planets. Yeah, I forgot to say this is a futuristic RPG, but in the gameplay you're seeing right now, you can already tell that. So I don't know, I mean, I have played games like that before. Some of the Phantasy Star titles include that, and I can obviously see Phantasy Star influence in this game, as well as Chrono Trigger. It's a futuristic RPG, and the plot revolves around this agent that works for a special organization, and well, the classic plot of futuristic stories. This organization sort of like sets her up and betrays her, and then she leaves, and then she's going to fight this organization, and with tons of other characters, each one with their motives for joining, and that's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. So the story is really good. I really enjoy the story, but if there is one thing, well, I covered the music, which is awesome. The battle system is great. The graphics, well, it's an indie RPG and it looks retro with 16-bit graphics. You take a look at this game and you see as if you were playing a Super Nintendo game. And the animations are great for being an indie RPG, are great. So everything in this game is fantastic, except even the story, except one thing. It doesn't ruin the experience at all. I enjoy the heck out of it. Well, there's two things actually. One of them, it didn't bother me that much. It didn't bother me maybe at all, because I know the point of this game was not the character development. But yes, the character development here is non-existent. All of the characters have a lot of dialogues. They talk a lot, yes, blah blah blah. There are side quests involving each one of your party members, but you don't know who these people are. You never know anything from their past. You don't know what kind of personal life they have. And that's something that we often see in RPGs. So the developers, I don't know if they did this on purpose or they just didn't know how to do this. I don't know, but that's something that's sort of like a downfall to me, because I really play RPGs mostly because of character development. But like I said, anyway, I mean, maybe that wasn't the point of the game. Maybe the point was just to create a retro feeling RPG with a great battle system and great music, and not focusing on characters. But nevertheless, I enjoy the story and the characters. And the second thing is that, well, it's an indie RPG, so it's a very short game. You will think you will be playing for 20 hours. Nope, I'm afraid to say that's not the case. But maybe if you're looking for a quick RPG, sort of like a speed run, this is the perfect game for you, because I don't want to spoil anything. So all I'm gonna say is that I did 9 hours. I beat the game within 9 hours, normal difficulty for the most part, and I did a lot of side quests. Yes, so even including side quests, this game, I don't think it's any longer than 10 hours. I made some research on the internet, and people were saying it takes from 15 to 20 hours to finish. And I was like, I am very sorry, but that's not true. I don't know, guys, don't listen to those reviews. This game, I beat almost every single side quest. I missed maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3, and each side quest takes like less than an hour to finish, less than half hour sometimes. Maybe if you're playing on hard difficulty, maybe you're gonna have to grind, and that may take a while, and this game may end up being maybe 15 hours, but 15 to 20, I seriously doubt that. So yes, this is a very short RPG, 10 hours or so, maybe less, maybe more, depending on what kind of gamer you are, on how you like playing your video games, your RPGs. But let's just put the line on 10 hours. It's a 10 hours RPG. And that's it. That's the only thing that I found slightly negative. I do think it's negative because the game is so awesome that you wish it could be longer story-wise. Forget about the side quests, those are fine. Thank you, developers, for creating these side quests for us, but I really wish you could have made your game longer, because it's amazing. It's great. I don't want to say it's one of the greatest indie RPGs I have ever played, because I barely played any. I don't think I played more than 10 indie RPGs. I want to get into those anytime soon. But for now, Cosmic Star Heroine, it's a great game, and I'm satisfied. I wish it could have been longer, but I'm okay with what it is. And I believe you can get this game on the PS4 and the PS Vita on a physical copy by Limited Run Games. That's it, guys. Cosmic Star Heroine, check it out. It's amazing. I strongly recommend it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time. Hey guys, what's up? Today I want to talk to you about my absolute favorite visual novel RPG and what I consider to be the best of them all. And it just happens that the one game that I want to talk about today was released on the PS2 and the Wii. And I'm talking about this excellent game called Sakura Wars, So Long My Love. This is a great game. It's considered to be a cross-genre because it is a combination between a visual novel, a puzzle game, and a strategy RPG, a turn-based strategy RPG. Anyway, but what makes this game so goddamn good? What makes this game so great and, in my opinion, the best visual novel RPG of all? The first thing that stands out like crazy in this game is that Unlike many other visual novel RPGs where you spend a lot of time reading, here, yes, it's the same. But every 1 minute, 1 or 2 minutes, or every 5 minutes, there's a decision to be made. And that adds up to the gameplay as a lot. Because sometimes in most visual novel RPGs, you're just there, reading over and over and over and over, then you get to a decision, you choose something, and then more, like 30, 45 minutes of just reading. This game is not like that. There's a lot of reading to be done, but most of the time, like 90% of the time, the game, you are interacting with the game by making decisions. Sakura Wars is the only game in the entire franchise that's ever been localized. Soon, this very same month, in a couple of days I think, we're gonna get a new Sakura Wars in this series for the PS4, modern systems, which is something like a reboot or reimagining of the franchise. I don't know, but it turns out it's gonna be an action RPG. And this one was the first one. And this is a big franchise, very popular in Japan, but the only one we ever got was this one, maybe because it takes place in New York. It's about this Japanese fresh new recruit who just graduated from the military academy, and he gets transferred to the New York branch of this military organization. And it takes place in 1928, so you can imagine the lifestyle of living in New York at that time. And the game does capture that very same essence truthfully. And there's a lot of jazz. The entire soundtrack is so jazz, so blues, so representative of that era in New York. And I love that this game has an amazing soundtrack. Now, it's a harem, and you realize most harems in JRPGs are kind of dumb. They're mostly dumb comedies, light comedies. It's just something, it's kind of fun. But this game takes itself very seriously. When it needs to be funny, it is funny as hell. You laugh out loud. And when it needs to be serious, you're just there like biting your nails on what's about to happen. And it has some very emotional moments. And I love that about this game because it makes you truly care about the characters a lot. Now, of course, it's a little bit of a cliche story. It's about the power of friendship and you know the deal, right? But you know, I'd say it's one of those power of friendship games or power of friendship stories that are really good. And I mean it. I talked about decisions before, and that's another feature of this game because you're making decisions every goddamn minute. And these decisions, oh boy, do they matter. They matter a hell of a lot because they influence the powers of your party members, which also happens to be these girls. If you don't level up in this game, you can't grind here. There's no leveling up system here as we know it. The leveling up, or rather the grinding, takes place during the decision making. If you choose the right answer for the certain girl, that girl is going to be stronger for the next battle, and so on with every other girl here in this game. Another gameplay mechanic that I mentioned is the puzzles. Of course, like I said before, puzzles are not really puzzles. They're just mini games where you just have to push the right button at the same time, or at the correct time, or in the right order. And sometimes there's also these camera sessions where you gotta take a really good picture, and the better the picture and the better results in the minigame, the better points you get with any of the girls, or all of the girls, or just one specifically. Last but not least are the battle mechanics in this game, which is a strategy RPG turn-based, but it's one of those where you gotta move around within limited areas, and the more you move, the more action points you spend. So you move around to position your characters, which fight in mechs, to the most convenient location, whether it's to attack an enemy, or to defend, or to heal, or whatever. It's all about strategizing, and it's easy, don't worry, this game is not hard as hell. The balance is there, the challenge is also there. It's a hard game, but slightly hard. It's just perfect, you know, the battle mechanics are perfect, sometimes are easy and sometimes are hard. It's just a perfectly balanced RPG. Honestly, before this game I have never seen such an interactive visual novel. Most visual novels that I played is just 80% just reading and then making decisions, or 80% reading and then do some battle system like in Tears to Tiara. But this game, you are playing, you are gaming the entire game, and that's why I think this is the best visual novel RPG of all time. It's such a masterpiece of a game, great adventure, great character development, strong character development. Like I said before, sometimes I was laughing my ass off and sometimes I was almost crying. So you might be thinking, which version is the best, the PS2 version or the Wii version? Well, they have small differences. Like, I think the PS2 version is the best, but this is a rare game, it's an expensive game, both versions go for over $50. This one is currently on the $60 range, and the PS2 is more expensive because it comes with this special edition with an artwork and a soundtrack, I think. But the PS2 version is slightly better because it glitches less. There's some glitches here and there in both versions, sadly. The truth of the matter is, you can't go wrong with either version. I strongly recommend this game, be it on the PS2 or the Wii, or if you guys use Dolphin to emulate this, don't feel bad because it's a rare game, expensive and hard to find. Sakura Wars, So Long My Love, what a masterpiece of a game, man. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time! I'm gonna make a little review of a game that, right now, that wasn't for me. To be honest, I'm not into these types of games. I appreciate the developers for reaching out and giving me this code, but I didn't know it was gonna be a Darkest Dungeon clone, and I'm not a fan of Darkest Dungeon. I tried it, I have the game, and I also have Mistover, which is very similar, you know, but I just couldn't get into them, you know. They're roguelike RPGs and a little bit like that. But this is called Circus Electric. It has a French name, you know, Circus Electric. So this is Circus Electric, and it's a game, like it's a Darkest Dungeon clone, and it was developed by Zen Studios. Zen Studios, a studio from Hungary, Budapest, Hungary, in Europe. And they are known for making a lot of pinball games. Their most popular games are Pinball FX or Zen Pinball. They've done some Star Wars games, Castle Storm games. They helped in a bunch of other games, you know. But all of a sudden, they decided to do this RPG, this turn-based RPG, this Darkest Dungeon clone. And this is a game where you also manage a circus, you know. The story of this game is all over the place. It kind of throws you in with no explanation whatsoever. You're following, I think, a reporter, you know, a girl from the media, and her weird-ass lion, badass-looking lion that doesn't join the party. Why would you make a badass-looking, powerful, menacing-looking lion that's not a party member? I just don't understand that. But okay, guys, you know, to each their own. I respect, you know, people's decisions in terms of creativity, but that's just weird. And in here you recruit circus performers like clowns, you know, for example. You get them into your party, and there's only like, so far I've only seen like 4 different types of characters. I'm pretty sure the more you advance, you unlock more, and you can recruit these generic characters. Generic not in the term of in a bad term, but in the term they are like, you know, they just look different colors and all that jazz, and have different names, but it's like the same job. And they all fight differently, and like I said, it's a turn-based RPG. Your characters are on one side of the screen, the other one's right in front of them. You fight these people called the Vicious, which are apparently, according to the game, are kind of like possessed people by some kind of evil. And it's up to this reporter, you know, to train these circus performers to fight the Vicious and find out what's going on, because it's affecting the circus. This game takes place in the 19th century, and it has strong steampunk elements, and it looks really good. You know, the visuals in this game are great. It's not an indie game, like I said, it's not an indie studio, so it looks really freaking great. The character design, the models, you know, they look kind of weird, but in a good sense, you know, it fits the atmosphere of this game, and I like that. But like I said, like it's a Darkest Dungeon clone, so you get all in these turn-based fights, which are all about positioning your characters, who's at the front, who's at the back, who can attack, what can this guy at the back do and attack, you know, buffs and debuffs, a hell of a lot of status effects, you know, and it's just like that. And this one starts pretty easy, unlike Darkest Dungeon, which starts pretty damn hard from the very beginning. This one's kind of easy at the beginning, you know, and there's also an easy and a normal and hard mode. I played it on normal mode for a few hours, and it just felt kind of easy, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna get more challenging. And so you do these explorations on an overworld map, and it's not like Darkest Dungeon where you actually explore the dungeons. This is more like a game called Grand Kingdom.
The board, the map, the overworld is just like that. You move from one location to another, and then you encounter a treasure chest. You open it, and then you encounter an enemy and fight a battle. And it's just like Grand Kingdom. I think it's great. And there's also the usual, Darkest Dungeon shenanigans that if your characters get tired or poisoned or whatever, you need to have them rest at the hospital. And there's a place where you can recruit characters and all that jazz. And the last thing that I want to mention is another gameplay feature. It's also not a circus simulator, but more like you do this. You select a few of your party members and have them perform on a show, but you don't actually see the show. That's kind of weird. I was hoping we will be able to see the show. Maybe you can later in the game, but during these first hours that I played, I didn't see any show. You just select which of your party members are going to partake in this show for regular people, and you don't see the show. So I was like, okay, fine, but that's it. That's their whole simulation. Overall, I think it's a great game. If you're into Darkest Dungeon or Mistover, games like that, you're gonna love this. I think it's a great game for that. It's not for me. I'm not really into those types of games. I'll keep playing it to see if it convinces me and I change my mind. But I can tell right from the start it's not my type of game. But I'll give it a try. That's all I can promise, and maybe come back and recommend it again one day. So this is Rise Eterna. Okay, so this is a grid-based strategy RPG. And it's an indie game developed by a company called Maki. Like M-A-K-E-E, Maki. This is a studio that's comprised by people from Poland, France, and Japan, I think. So it's a worldwide RPG, but it's mostly a European RPG, but it's inspired by Fire Emblem. However, even though it kind of looks like Fire Emblem, it's very different. I found it very different. I'll be comparing this game to Fire Emblem just to prove to you that it's not really like Fire Emblem. I see the inspiration, but it's not really like that. So this is a game that takes place in the medieval setting, and the main character is Lua. That's the girl you're seeing right now on the picture. And her name is Lua, and she lives in a peaceful village. So the other main character is this guy, and he's a bandit, but he doesn't raid the villages. He just takes care of the camp, while his friends, the bandits, the evil guys, go and raid the villages. So Lua's village gets raided, and then he doesn't go. But time passes, and he's like, "What's going on? They haven't come back. They haven't returned." So he goes to look for them, and he finds out to the village, and he finds out that Lua pretty much killed the majority of them by herself. And he's like, whoa, what the hell? Who is this girl? Well, obviously she's pissed off as hell, and she tries to take it out on the guy, but they worked it out. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but let's just say they joined together forces, and he decides to help her go to the big city, to the capital, because this is a universe where there's an oppressive empire, an evil empire took over the world, and people are sick of that. So Lua is starting to consider some kind of revolution, to take down the empire. And this guy, this ex-bandit, decides to join forces with her and help her, reach the city. And then once she's in the city, she finds out she has special powers, special abilities. She's kind of like a thief type of character. She fights with 2 short swords. And she's kind of weak at the beginning, but near the end of the game, she's completely broken, and she can take the entire map on her own. We'll get to that in a bit. But that's the whole story. She needs to find her sisters, who are also, very powerful, to build a small army to take on the Empire. So it's pretty interesting. It's a pretty interesting topic. It's kind of cliche, yes it is, but how the dialogues are carried out, it's pretty interesting. There's a lot of edginess in there, a lot of tragedy. The music in this game is kind of like, it's good. It's not that great, but it's good. And the world, there's like 3 world map themes, and they get more depressing as you advance the story. And it's not like the game is that tragic. There's some tragedies in there, but some darkness in there. But it's not like, the music is kind of like exaggerated a little bit, but it's good. All right, so the gameplay. This is, like I said before, a strategy RPG. But it's very top-down view, like from really high up, the camera. So it looks really small. It looks a little bit like a phone game. It screams low budget, but this is not a phone game. I'm not sure if it's available for mobile phones, but it's on PS4, Switch, and Steam. And I'm not sure if it's on the Xbox One, but maybe it is. I don't know. But the point is that you do move on grids, and when you touch an enemy, when you enter battle, it goes into this 2D view like in Fire Emblem. But however, in Fire Emblem, the majority of the enemies or your characters counter-attack, right? When it's a melee attack. If you attack from afar with a bow or with magic, you don't get counter-attacked, right? But in Fire Emblem, and you attack an enemy up front and the enemy counters. Not in this game. This is not like in Fire Emblem. You just attack and that's it. And if other characters are, around the character you chose to perform that attack, they increase your stats. They don't fight beside you. They don't attack the enemy. They just stand there in the anime, in the 2D animation. They just stand there and your character, attacks the enemy. But the character has more, defense or more attack power or more agility. And agility is a must. That's a stat you need to increase in this game because the RNG is fucked up. It's one of my biggest gripes with this game, with this indie game. The RNG was like a lot of times I had like 80-something% of hit, and the characters were missing, a lot, and I was like, man. But anyway, this is a game where you do not level up. You don't gain experience. Instead, you get skill points, but it doesn't matter what you do in battle. Even if you use only one character to kill everybody and the rest are just there, every single character is going to get one skill point after every mission. And that's a skill point you use to unlock abilities or unlock stats like defense plus 5 or HP plus 5, attack plus 5 or agility. Or, this other spell, this magic, or you increase the power of this attack spell. So, while you don't level up, the experience points are transformed into these skill points. But it's funny that, it just doesn't matter who fights who. Like I said, you can just use one or two characters to kill everybody in the field, and the other 3 characters, the other 4 characters, because this is a game where you can only have 6 characters. Unlike in Fire Emblem, where you can have like 10, 12, 15 per every map. In here, you have a limited amount of characters, like 6 is the maximum amount of characters you can have during every map. And like I said, you can just do nothing and we use one character to kill everybody, and everybody's still going to get one skill point after battle. So, I don't know about that. At the beginning, it bothered me a bit, but I got used to that. I was like, okay, so these guys are trying to do something different, get rid of the random status increases of the leveling up system, we see often in Fire Emblem. Because, come on, if you guys have played any Fire Emblem games, you probably already know that sometimes you level up and you only increase one stat. So it's an RNG for the experience system, and it's messed up in Fire Emblem. I still love it though, but it's fucked up. So they got rid of that. And there's also some alchemy stuff in here, not like in Atelier, but there's a lot of items in the map, in treasure chests, or just laying there, that you can gather to create potions, or buffs, or debuffs, or healing items, because in this game there are no shops, there's no stores, you can't buy anything, so your only way to create items in this game is to craft them with these materials. And there's also a gem system, and that also makes up for the lack of leveling up system. In here, you can sometimes find these gems in the map, particularly on treasure chests. You create these gems that also increase your character's stats. Plus attack plus 5, defense plus 5, plus 15, attack increase 20%, things like that. So that's the way these developers thought of for replacing the experience system. You don't level up, but you get all this cool stuff. And overall, it's an amazing game. It's not an easy game. It was easy for me because I have a shit ton of experience in strategy RPGs. I mean, this is my genre. It's my favorite genre of video games. But I'm still going to recommend this game for beginners. It's a great game. It's a great entry for beginners into strategy RPGs, and it's dirt cheap. It's usually on sale. I got it for $2, like I said, digital. I don't know if there's a physical version. Well, my point is that I don't think it's that challenging, but it's not that easy. So if you're a beginner, but you don't want the game to be extremely easy, don't worry, you can still start with this game. You know, it's fairly challenging. There's no permadeath. That's right, your characters don't die permanently. If they die, you can use them in the next mission. So it's okay, no permadeath. There are some secret characters, secret powerful characters that you can get. You need a guide for that because they are locked in specific maps that you have to replay again. But it's kind of fun, you know, because the game is very addictive. If you like grid-based strategy RPGs, Fire Emblem, Shining Force, then you're gonna love this game, you know. It's an amazing game, and the art style is beautiful, you know, while the graphics, the in-game graphics look really low budget, like 8-bit style of graphics. You know, the art style, the character design, when they pop up and talk during the conversations, you know, they look beautiful. I really like the character design, so my praises go to the whoever designed this game, these game's characters. My one and only complaint with this game is that it's too damn short. Unfortunately, it's too damn short. I beat the game in 8.5 hours. There's no difficulty settings. You can't choose, I think. I don't remember if you can choose an easy mode or a hard mode. I don't think so. I think you're just stuck with the game's random difficulty and standard difficulty, normal difficulty, I guess. But the game just ends. 8.5 hours. I was like, oh, okay, so let's keep going. And it just ends. I got the credits. I was like, oh, so that was the final boss? Okay. I got the credits and the end. 8.5 hours. So this game came out in 2019, I think, so it's either one of two. One, the developers may be planning a sequel, a direct sequel to continue because the story didn't end. You didn't... I don't want to spoil... I'm not going to spoil anything, but just play the game and when you beat it, you're going to be like, what? It just ended, you know, it just ends after a mission. They have a conversation, they have this really, really small scene, you know, posing as the ending, and that's it. So either the developers are planning a sequel, or for some reason they decided to leave it at that. I hope it's the first one. I hope they are planning a sequel because the game just can't end like that. It's like, man, that's just, it just fucking, it sucks, man. That ending sucks. Don't leave us like that. But if it's part 1 of a series, and if there's gonna be a sequel, a continuation, a part 2, then okay, I'll get it. But still, it's a very short game. You can beat this game in less than 10 hours. It's an indie game. Usually indie RPGs are like this. They're very short. Come on, there's not a lot of money to make 40, 50 hour long games. It's an indie game, keep that in mind. But I do strongly recommend it, especially for Fire Emblem fans. I love this game. Great game. I wish it could have been longer. Hey guys, what's up? You've probably been wondering about this Utawarerumono series for a while, haven't you? Maybe. You've seen these games here and there and you wonder if they're connected, what kind of games they are. What's this? What's this Utawarerumono stuff? Well, luckily for you, I'm here to tell you all about it. This is a series that is strongly, super strongly recommended. So let's begin. So the Utawarerumono series is actually a media franchise. There's anime series, there's manga series, there's visual novels, there's etc. But the stuff that I want to focus on today are the video games. There are 5 video games in this series, 3 main games which comprise a trilogy, and 2 little spin-offs which are like the Dynasty Warrior style of gameplay. We'll get to those later. Now the ones you've probably seen more often are these 2, which are actually a duology, Mask of Deception and Mask of Truth. However, there's one little game missing here that I don't own physically, and that is Prelude to the Fallen, which is the very first Utawarerumono game in existence. And that's the one you need to start with. Oh yeah, these games are like the Trail series. You need to play the first one first before you jump into the others. Now, Utawarerumono Prelude to the Fallen was released for PC back in 2002, developed by 2 companies, Leaf and Aqua Plus. It never came out of Japan, and it also got a bunch of ports for consoles like the PlayStation 2, the PSP, all of them exclusive to Japan. However, sometime later they decided to remaster this very same game for the PlayStation 4, the PS Vita, and Steam. But they did this after they had released the sequels, which are Mask of Deception and Mask of Truth, and that is where the confusion starts. Well, to make things simple for you, let's just say that due to the small success Mask of Deception and Truth got, they remastered the game, the first game, to release it overseas for everybody. But like I said, you need to start with Prelude to the Fallen first. So let's start with that one first. So this is a strategy RPG. It follows the adventures of an amnesiac protagonist who wakes up in the middle of a world inhabited by anthropomorphic creatures, human-looking characters with ears and tails, like animal ears and tails. However, the world they inhabit seems to resemble a little bit the feudal Japan, so it's kind of medieval. The protagonist, doesn't remember his name, so the nurse who finds him, which is some kind of apothecary, living in a humble small village with her sister and her grandmother. So they nurse him back to life and they named him Hakuolo. And so, this protagonist finds out that there's something wrong with him, that there's something different with him, and little by little, he starts getting involved in a war, he becomes a strategist, he becomes pretty much the leader of a rebellion against the oppressive empire and whatnot. So this game, in terms of storytelling, it takes a lot of influence from games like Suikoden. I mean, you don't recruit 108 characters like in Suikoden, but you recruit characters, you build an army, etc. But there are no gameplay mechanics about that. The majority of the gameplay will be just reading the dialogue, reading the scenes, and then playing the strategy RPG battles. You will have a base of operations here, where you'll be able to choose which scene to watch next, or if you want to play some free missions or training missions to train your characters. Equip your characters with the accessories you've gained after battle. These accessories help increase this or that, the usual stuff. You can also equip healing items because there's only one healer in the entire game, so these items will come in handy, of course. And during battle, you'll have a bunch of characters placed on grids under your command, sometimes 7, sometimes 8, sometimes up to 10, depending on the mission. Now there's a zeal bar right there that you need to fill up, we'll get to that in a bit. First and foremost, this is a very simple strategy RPG, perfect for beginners as this is a very easy game. There's only normal and hard difficulties in all 3 games, and normal difficulty is pretty easy, it's not that easy, but it's easy, it's balanced. Hard difficulty is obviously harder, it's more challenging, and if you are very experienced in strategy RPGs, I do recommend playing these games on hard. Characters, both party members and enemies alike, have elemental weaknesses. The game actually tells you, which characters are advantageous to others and which ones have a disadvantage in elemental speaking. Regardless of their weapon and their equipment, they have elemental strengths and weaknesses, but you'll be fine because the game always tells you which characters are weak to this type of character or this other character and so on. Now let's talk about the Seal bar. So, this is a combo-based strategy RPG, believe it or not. Your characters attack on combos, whether it's magic attack or whether it's physical attack, especially physical attacks. Magic attacks are usually just 1 or 2 attacks, or generally just 1. But all physical attacks of all kind have this combo-based system. You need to click the button at the right time, the action button at the right time, to make your attacks work and to fill up the seal bar. Some characters have like 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of attacks, so if you click the button, your character will attack continuously. However, if you just click only once, your character will stop attacking. But if you click at the right time, you will increase the seal bar, and once it fills up to 100, your character will either execute or be able to execute a special attack or a very powerful extra attack. So overall, there's nothing convoluted, nothing complex about this battle system, but I love it because it's just simple. As much as I love some complex and deep mechanics in JRPGs, I also love simple yet effective mechanics, ones that are easy to understand, easy to get into, and really fun with responsive characters, responsive attacks, no RNG BS here. So everything is well developed here, Congratulations to Leaf and Aqua Plus, you nailed it. This is a fantastic strategy RPG, and like I said, guys, there's a reason why these games have a mature rating. Yes, they have fan service, they have silliness, they have a lot of slice of life comedy and whatnot. But if you can put up with that nonsensical amount of dialogue and that slice of life comedy and silliness, you will be rewarded by extremely unexpected and dark plot twists, mature situations, adult and political plots, These are incredibly well-written stories, My mind was blown when I played them. Like many of you, I was expecting these games to be just silly and dumb with fan service and whatnot, but oh my god, they blew me away. Excellent narrative in these games. And the other two, the sequels to Prelude to the Fallen, are no exception. In fact, they're even better. Mask of Deception and Mask of Truth are the direct sequels to Prelude to the Fallen. They take place several years after the events of Prelude to the Fallen in another part of the continent. That means different characters, different heroines, and of course a different amnesiac protagonist who is also named Haku. But it's not the same character as before, it's a different protagonist. Some of the characters from Prelude to the Fallen come back in these games, and Mask of Truth, which is the third and final game in the trilogy, spoils the heck out of you, so that's why it's very important to play Prelude to the Fallen first. However, Deception and Truth are pretty much the same game cut into two parts, Volume 1 and Volume 2, like Trails in the Sky 1 and 2, Trails from Zero and Azure, Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2, you get the idea. The gameplay is very similar in this duology as it was in Prelude to the Fallen. Once again, we are met with a strategy RPG, grid-based, where you can position a bunch of characters in different formations and start the battle. Items are gone here, but thankfully, there are more healers, there are more characters here who can use healing spells. Accessories are back, you can equip up to 2, 3, 4 of them depending on the character. One thing I forgot to mention about Prelude to the Fallen, which is also featured in these other two games, is after every battle you'll get experience points. It doesn't matter if your characters participated in battle or not, there is no perma-death here. Even if a character died in battle, they return to the next one, and they also gain experience even death. You also get BP points, which are basically skill points, you know. After you level up, you get a bunch of points that you can allocate to your characters. But the combat is pretty much the same except for one simple detail which makes the combat in Mask of Deception and Truth a little bit better and more intuitive and more fun than in Prelude to the Fallen. In here, you gotta click once again the action button at the right time, but instead of increasing the seal bar, what you're gonna do is perform or execute critical attacks. And in here, you do need to click the button at the right time so your characters can do more damage. They'll do their combos no matter what, even if you don't click the buttons, but if you click it at the right time, or sometimes for spells, you need to hold the button and release it at the right time to create a critical attack. That is awesome, you know, it just makes you train yourself, you know, and get better, get good enough, you know, to click the buttons at the right time every time so your characters can do more damage. And once again, once you feel the seal bar up to 100, your characters will be able to either execute a special attack or a combination attack, etc. Amazing combat in this game and amazing writing in all three of them. Oh my god, you know, I can't believe I missed out on these games so much. I remember giving them a C, man, on my tier list PS Vita video. What an idiot, you know, these games, separately they're excellent games that should be on the A tier, together all three of them form a badass masterpiece. Kuon, the main heroine of Mask of Deception and Truth, you know, she has become one of my all-time favorite female protagonists in JRPGs. And for a guy who has played hundreds of JRPGs in his life, that's gotta have some weight, right? That means Kuon, yeah, that's how much I loved Kuon. Amazing cast of characters in these games, man. Now, you're probably wondering, what the hell are these games? Utawarerumono Zan. There's two games so far. All two of them are based on Mask of Deception and Mask of Truth. I only own the first one, but these are the Musou style of games that I mentioned at the beginning. The ones that are inspired by Dynasty Warriors. You fight against hordes of enemies with your favorite characters. Up to 4 characters can participate in battle. There's some small RPG elements, they level up and can equip accessories and distribute skill points, just like in the original games. But story-wise, it's the exact same story as in Deception and Truth, just told in a nutshell, like narrowed down, like shrunk. But obviously that also means that it is absolutely necessary to play these other games first before this action RPG, action style, Musou style of spin-offs. Yeah. Are they any good? Yes, they are. This first one, it surprised me. The camera, the controls, the combat, the collision detection, the graphics, everything's amazing. The one thing I didn't like is that the 3D models, they look kinda ugly and weird, but you know, I don't really care about that, you know, everything else is amazing. So this Musou style of spin-off, it's also strongly recommended. Once again, let me stress that out. Don't be fooled by the amount of nonsensical and fan service and silliness and slice of life dialogue here. You know, you will be rewarded with amazing, incredibly dark and mature and upsetting plot twists, man. These are amazing stories, amazing universe for an amazing trilogy. Utawarerumono, that's it. Now you know what the hell it is, and now you know that it is strongly recommended by yours truly. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time! So this is Monochrome Mobius, Rights and Wrongs Forgotten. It's on PS4, PS5 and Steam. Actually, the Windows version was the only one released last year outside of Japan. I don't know why it took NIS America almost an entire year to localize it for PlayStation consoles. Anyway, despite having a different name, this is a mainline title from the Utawarerumono series. It takes place before the events of Mask of Deception and Mask of Truth, which are visual novel strategy RPGs I've covered before this year many times. Monochrome is not one of those. It's a traditional style turn-based RPG with tons of exploration, but we'll get to that in a bit. Before I tell you what this game's about, please note that it isn't necessary to play any other game in the series first. It's okay to start with this one. It's recommended to play the others first, just to be more acquainted with the characters and understand a bunch of references though, especially about the lore and the world itself. But like I said, it's not indispensable, so Monochrome is a good place to start. The story follows Ashtor before he becomes the Mikado's right hand. Shunya and Ashtor's father run away from some guards, but only Shunya manages to escape into the outside world. That's where she meets Ashtor, claiming his father is also hers. She also claims he's in danger, so Ashtor, believing all these years that his father was dead, joins up with her to look up for him and save him. Now, Ashtor isn't the only character getting a full developed prequel for him. We also got two more important characters from Mask of Deception and Truth, like Munechika and Mikazuchi. As a matter of fact, these three and Shunya are the only 4 playable characters in the entire game. But since this is a prequel, let me remind you that you don't need to play the Utawarerumono games to get into this game, but it is advised to do so. Despite having some small fan service and comedy involved, the narrative is pretty good here, but there's a big problem. NIS America often takes a lot of liberties with their translations, and this game is no exception. The game has no English dub, it's all in Japanese with English subs. On a regular basis, even if you don't know Japanese, you can hear the actors saying something that clearly doesn't match the dialogue written. I freaking hate when companies do this. Even if it isn't out of context, adding entire sentences to just one word mentioned or a simple expression is really annoying. People aren't stupid, NIS America. Just because we don't know or understand Japanese doesn't mean we won't realize you are changing the dialogue and the translation for no damn reason. Jesus, but anyway, that's my rant. Thankfully though, it doesn't hurt the story that much. It still has a really solid script and it shows throughout its development. Actually, the narrative adapts perfectly to its traditional gameplay mechanics. It's one of those games that reminds me of the PS1 and PS2 era, with that feeling of adventure. You go out into the world, controlling whoever you want, with visible enemies all around. It isn't an open world RPG, but there's a lot of exploration to be done within stunning graphics. Aqua Plus and Design Act, the developers, aren't known for being big budget studios, so it's impressive they managed to make the game look like this. It does have some small frame rate issues in certain areas and tons of loading screens for the PS4 version, but it's okay. No resolution issues. If you see some in this review, it's because of the 720p HD format I captured the gameplay footage in. Music is alright. I liked it and there are some memorable themes, but I prefer the soundtrack in the Utawarerumono series way more. So the gameplay will revolve around sending you to explore different areas and ruins, visiting some towns in between. Puzzles are there to solve, but the majority of them are quite easy and actually entertaining. But they're mostly the usual go there to activate this switch to open the passage to this door, you know, stuff like that. There's one main town in the game, which is the Imperial capital, where most of the story will unfold. You have your shops and your side quests in any town you visit, sure, but some side quests are exclusive to the capital. Exclusive to the capital is also the blacksmith store, where you can invest materials to increase its rank, meaning better equipment for sale, or fortify it if you've unlocked it and have enough money. Trust me, you'll be spending a lot of time here, cause this game is freaking hard. It's one of those that starts off extremely easy and then goes on to stupidly hard. I usually complain about those, but there's an easy way to break this one. Let me explain. Once you are on a certain level, you'll be able to just instantly kill the monsters in the fields or ruins without getting into a battle. This is extremely useful because you get the same amount of experience, money, and materials that way. Experience though is shared amongst the party, which is also one of the reasons why this game's so hard. But just go back to some areas from one chapter ago and make your way through the dungeons, just killing everything. You'll be over leveled in no time. There's no easy mode here, only normal and hard, but this method can be easily applied to both, reducing your grinding time considerably. It's a lot of fun. But I still am kinda resentful that they felt the need to make their game this unbalanced. Anyway, let's talk about the combat. It's played in classic turns, but with a twist. First, the turn order is affected by how both you and your enemies perform. If someone staggers someone, they'll be vulnerable. Hitting them will move the attacker up in the action ring. Those circles you see in the upper left corner, that means their turn will come up faster. The enemies stagger you quite often, especially bosses, which is one of the biggest reasons also why this game is so challenging. They can gang up on you several times and destroy you in just a few turns, especially since a lot of attacks, including yours, so you can abuse these too, have a knockback effect, knocking your character icon back so their turn is delayed. Obviously, this battle system is very influenced by the one seen in the Grandia series. The only way to stagger enemies is by constantly dealing damage to them or perform a critical attack, but unlike in Grandia, you don't have an option to execute one, it's just a matter of being lucky to get one. The point is, if you hit a staggered enemy, you'll ascend in the action ring and your turn will come faster, but the enemy can do the same to you. Now, there's also the seal. Every time one of your characters attacks or gets hit, their seal bar increases. Once it's full, they get a boost in their stats and can ascend in the action ring so their turn comes faster and eventually also get a special attack that consumes the whole bar. In reality, this combat isn't that original per se, but it makes battles really fun, more strategic and more challenging. Finally, let's talk about that little pink creature you've been seeing so far. That's Halu, a character that can transform into a giant machine during battle. He needs action points to do that, points that you get the more your characters act. Once it's full, you can select him from the menu and he'll battle solo. He can only attack, not guard, or escape, or heal. He does have an HP bar though, but his attacks cost action points. Once he's defeated, or once you've used all those points, he'll disappear, but can be resummoned once again in the same battle. It is highly advised to use this guy for boss battles since he takes a big chunk of HP out of them with most of his attacks. Every time you level up in this game, everyone except Halu gets B points. These you can use to increase certain stats, even though they also increase after leveling up. As for Halu, there's a shop only available in the Imperial City just for him. As the game progresses, he will unlock several battle but also passive abilities that have many different uses. To activate them though, you'll need different materials required. To train him, you also need materials. These are used to increase the power of his abilities, his HP, and to level him up. So yeah, this is yet another modern JRPG that relies more on gathering materials from places or enemies than on simple grinding. Side quests give you materials as well as a reward, but some might give you a lot of money and experience too. Even if they're dumb-ass fetch quests, I strongly advise doing a bunch of them at least during the first several hours of the game. Regardless, you'll be surprised to know that I did almost every single side quest in this game. It isn't a masterpiece, it does have its problems like I mentioned. Apart from its difficulty, there isn't anything that frustrating. Besides, the method I used for grinding that I told you about makes that difficulty go away. It's not a long game either, it took me around 38 hours to beat on normal mode, including doing most of the side quests. I strongly recommend this game, even if you don't care for the rest of the series. I know visual novels and or strategy RPGs aren't for everyone, so like I said, it's okay to start with this title. It's easy to get into, with a very well written story, great combat and addictive gameplay mechanics. Definitely a must play. And that is my review of Monochrome Mobius on the PlayStation 4, also on PS5 and Windows. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time! Very rarely do we get Japanese RPGs that include horror elements, but out of the very few released outside of Japan, this is definitely the most messed up of them all. The Yoko Taro RPGs like the Nier or the Drakengard series don't even come close, not even Xenogears. The brutality and impactful moments seen in this game break all standards and cross all lines within the genre. Sure, there are some anime series, movies, books, or even visual novels far darker than this game, but a turn-based RPG released outside of Japan with this level of darkness is a huge rarity. Seriously, what the actual hell? So this is Dead End Request 2 on PlayStation 4, Switch and Steam, what I consider as the darkest JRPG I've ever played. Let me start from the beginning. First, there's this little gem called Dead End Request on those 3 systems as well, that I've covered a couple of times recently, developed by Idea Factory and Compile Hard. Now, don't turn off the video yet. I know those companies are infamous for the comedy and fan service. Trust me, this game is the exact opposite of that. Both games are serious games, and the second, well, I already told you, is way too messed up. Sure, they include some humor, nonsensical slice of life dialogue, and fan service too. They wouldn't be Compile Hard games without that. But they engage way more on an entirely different focus, especially the second game. It is kinda necessary to play the first one first to fully understand its sequel. The 2 main characters from it return and a big part of the plot revolves around things that happened because of them. You can still jump into this one if you want to though, as the spoilers from the first game aren't that big, but I strongly recommend starting with it. And why wouldn't you? It's also an amazing RPG and the second best by Compile Hard, second only to its sequel. Written by Makoto Kedouin, the writer behind the Corpse Party series, I mean that should speak volumes. The game puts you in the shoes of Mai Toyama, in an opening scene that shows you explicitly this game won't fool around. It gives you a pretty good taste of the super messed up adventure you're about to live. Mai is a reclusive girl whose abusive father beats her up and more on a regular basis. One day she just loses it and brutally kills him. That's right, brutally! In a way, nearly no JRPG would ever dare. And while you don't see the actual killing taking place, only these masterful drawings, the way they describe it to you with sound effects is more than enough to send chills running down your spine. So, now that her father is dead, Mai is an orphan that desperately wants to find her missing little sister. Their mother died years ago and her sister ran away, which is why their father became that way. So Mai's murder is claimed as self-defense. A social worker finds her and takes her to live in an orphanage in a very remote village. Mai suspects her sister might be there. A place for girls only, run by the mysterious headmistress Midra. Her daughter, Rotten, yes that's her name, not a translation shenanigan, worst name ever for a character, she befriends Mai. Girls are paired up in rooms as roommates here, so Midra places Mai with Roddy. Now, there's a lot of Yuri in this game, which shouldn't be a surprise if you've played other Compile Hard RPGs. A couple of girls are an item and whatnot, but Roddy is completely obsessed with Mai. She really wants to get in her panties the entire game, but it's mostly handled as comedy. Mai isn't interested one bit in that though, but they become good friends nonetheless. However, Mai soon notices two very strange things happening in this town and orphanage. Nobody seems to know technology at all. Girls wonder what a phone or even a computer is. And to make matters far worse, only girls like Mai and Roddy can see the horrendous monsters roaming the streets at midnight. Obviously, the goal of the game is for Mai to find her sister, expose whatever's happening in there, and get the hell out. That's where the horror part comes in, but we'll get to that in a bit. Unlike its predecessor, where half of the game was a visual novel, this game pulls that off impressively. You'll get a small feature of one during this menu-based phase, where you can talk to other girls of the dorm. It's important to do that so you get acquainted with them, or else the most horrendous and tragic moments in this game won't hit you as hard. This is why the game is so fantastic, because the horrible things that happen and how they happen hits you right there, man. Now, like the first game, it's called Dead End Request for a number of spoiler reasons, but the non-spoiler one is that it has a lot of random bad endings. Fortunately, unlike in the first game, you can save freely during dialogue, and if you get a bad ending, you'll have the option to go back to the last decision point. So it encourages you more to watch these dead ends without having to worry about your save data. Some of them are gruesome, but not as much as the main events in the story. And thank goodness the true ending is the canon ending here. No requirement bullcrap shenanigans, the way it always should be. Let's talk about the rest of the gameplay. Like I said, it's a horror game, so every time you go out to explore, it'll be done in these really creepy streets or forests full of these spider-like spikes with strange data. No interaction is done with them, but they just look beautifully creepy everywhere you go. Monsters are roaming around, but you can avoid them if you want to. However, often you'll encounter these horrible shadow matter beings, and you'll have to run away from them until they disappear. Even the regular monsters stay away from them. If they catch up to you, it's game over. So that's a really stressful horror element there, but it's awesome, you'll get used to it. Graphics are beautiful, you gotta consider it's an Idea Factory game, so obviously they aren't a AAA studio, but for what they are, I thought the visual department was great. The soundtrack, however, is absolutely incredible. Creepy as hell, and with some memorable themes in battle. But the king of them all is the final boss theme, which is beyond badass, and among my favorites ever in a JRPG. Combat. It's the same as in the first game, but with some big quality of life improvements. Up to 3 girls can participate in battle, and they are by themselves. Again, characters and enemies are weak to a specific element of the 3, sun, moon, and stars. All girls will learn a few attacks of each element, but they'll focus on their own, same as the monsters. During your turn, you can still walk around the battlefield to position your girl in a strategic way near the enemy or the enemies. You can attack regularly or select up to 3 actions in a row. If the last action has a knockback feature, you'll send the enemy flying across the screen so they can bump into each other or against the walls. Bumping into an ally will make that ally attack them again to keep them bumping. Magic circles are back, as you can see, but that's where the improvement comes in handy. You see, in the first game, nearly every single one of them will damage you when touching them. Still, you kinda needed them if you wanted to increase the corruption level of the girls, so they could transform into sexy demons for one turn. In this game, barely any of the circles damage you, and instead they buff a different stat. Once they reach 80%, they'll transform into glitch mode and do more damage, including an optional special attack as their third action. I freaking love this combat. It was amazing in the first game, it's even better here because of that, and it's just easier to have enemies bump around, creating nothing but massive damage and chaos amongst all of them until they die. Oh yeah, it's awesome. Finally, weapon, armor, and accessories can be purchased in the camps within the save points from the Strange Seller. He also offers side quests, but they're all lousy fetch quests, nothing important whatsoever. The game also has puzzles throughout the areas, similar to survival horror games where you need to find this key all the way to the left to unlock the door all the way to the right, and so on. The 3 main characters have a unique ability to them to help with some of these puzzles. They're fun, nothing irritating, and the last thing I want to say is that the game's too short. You can beat it in about 15 hours unless you play it on hard mode. Easy and normal modes are there. Easy mode is a damn joke, stupidly easy, and I don't recommend it. Normal is also quite easy except for a couple of ridiculous bosses. The final boss is infuriatingly hard, but only because it's very HP spongy. Other than that, it's almost a walk in the park. I loved it passionately nonetheless. And now I'd like to make a comparison between the PS4 and the Switch versions. So time to pick your poison, guys. Both have a big issue but different altogether. I got codes for both versions for a reason, but I don't know about the Steam release. The PS4 version runs smoothly whenever you move around with any character in any area. Combat is the same, you'll have no obstruction from bad frame rate or low resolution. Sadly, this version is censored. Only the glitched transformations, mind you. Here's a comparison between the first game and the second game on PS4. This is Clea. As you can see, they just added a few small layers to cover her up a little bit more. They did the same with every single character. It's ridiculous and pathetic, to be honest. It's like they didn't even try, it's pointless. Girls are still quite sexy in their glitch outfits, but whatever. The Switch version is just as censored except for the character portraits, but they're still censored in battle. Like, what was the point of that? Did they forget to censor them too on the menus? So I guess it's partially uncensored. However, its technical issues are terrible. Take a freaking look. This is one of the worst frame rates I've seen on the Switch. It feels very choppy, it lags a lot, and controlling your character is just plain awful. I tried playing this one first for a while, just for the sake of the uncensored version, but it turned out to be very annoying. I mean, you can really see me struggling with the camera right now. Even in combat, it still runs poorly. On docked, that means in portable mode, it's less choppy, but the low frame rate is still kinda there. This is the reason why I gave this version up and turned to the censored PS4. Go to hell, Sony. It would have been a perfect version if it wasn't for your political BS. In any case, the game's still amazing, and if you're willing to put up with the Switch issues, then by all means be my guest. So why is this game so freaking dark then? Why was it so impactful to me? I can't show you the most gruesome scenes because YouTube, but stuff like what you're seeing right now is what nearly destroyed me. I just couldn't believe I was actually seeing something this horrible in a JRPG. Scenes like these are scattered across the story, and there's one that I won't show because of spoilers that almost broke me, man. It was just too much. But that intensity, that level of darkness, of gore, of stress, that's what made me a huge fan. It's such a stunning and emotional game in a level most JRPGs wouldn't even come close. That's what makes it so damn special. This is the best compile hard RPG and the most fucked up I've seen in a long time. As I said, there are far darker stories out there, I know that, with way more gore and gruesome scenes, but in a localized JRPG, it's so rare that it just leaves a strong impression on you. Definitely recommend it, guys. It's almost a masterpiece, or dare I say, it is Compile Hard's masterpiece. Legend of Legacy is a turn-based RPG originally released on the 3DS in 2015. It got very mixed reviews back then and a poor commercial reception. Today, this remaster was released on PS4, PS5, Switch and Windows, and that's the version I'll be reviewing today. Is it better now? Did it fix the issues that got it its mixed reception? Well, we're about to find out. First and foremost, I'd like to do an unboxing of the limited edition NIS America sent me. I'm really grateful for it, so besides my review, it's the least I can do. Plus, it's beautiful with a big focus on the original art style. The first thing we see here is the cloth piece, pretty well wrapped up. Of course, I unwrapped it and here is a picture of it full size. Beautiful. We've got the art book next, in hardcover, which is sweet. Colored pages with more artwork, some wallpapers, and characters. I like that they show the character poses here on the right, and on the left, there's the art of Tomomi Kobayashi, known for the Saga series. Next are these cool looking cards, 7 in total, each with one of the main characters of the game. And finally, the soundtrack with 10 songs of the game. Yeah, overall a really nice special edition on the PlayStation 5. Thanks again for the gift, NIS America. Now, Legend of Legacy is a game inspired by Squaresoft's Saga series. Actually, some of its people worked here. You can choose between 7 different protagonists and each has their own default party members. However, you'll be able to recruit everybody else quite quickly. You won't have to do anything to recruit them though, they will join automatically. Not even 2 hours in and I already had them all. But you can only take 2 of them besides the protagonist you choose, who can't ever be removed from the party. I chose Eloise as my main character for plot reasons. Yeah. The story follows an island called Avalon that's being overrun by mysteries and monsters, so adventurers are coming from all over the world for many different reasons, but the primary reason is that the king will reward them if they help restore it. Your characters will take care of that by doing 2 things. Restoring the areas with weak elemental power, and by completing the maps and selling them. We'll get to that in a bit. There is actually interaction with your characters, but barely. Most of it will be at the beginning between your main character and the 2 default initial party members. But after that, this game will focus 90% on its gameplay rather than its story. And the plot will focus on your main character. Despite this, the plot is interesting, and there's a certain mystique to it that keeps pulling you in. It's no wonder the script was written by a legendary Chrono Trigger and Cross writer Masato Kato. The graphics look absolutely stunning. They look beautiful in the original 3DS version, but this remaster brings them to a whole new shine. It's all detailed and the performance is great, with no frame rate issues and a quick interface with barely any loading times. The hand-drawn graphics stand out gorgeously and the character models are a treat to the eyes. Music is alright, there's not much variety since there's only one town, one battle theme and the soundtrack you'll hear in different areas. Some tunes do stand out though, but the rest is somewhat forgettable to be honest. Now let's talk about the gameplay. The town will be your base of operations with a shop, a trading post, a bar, an inn and the throne room. The latter is where you'll report to the king every time you restore an area. He'll reward you for this with items and money. Money is obviously used at the shop to buy healing items or equipment, and it has a different inventory every time you come back from the overworld. Characters can actually equip every type of weapon available, but they'll suck at most unless you keep training them. I recommend sticking to just 1 or 2, cause after all, they can only equip up to 2. The trade post charges you money to send ships to sea or other lands and bring back useful items or equipment. The higher the price, the higher the quality, but also the longer it'll take to come back. Ships take real in-game hours to come back, which is a chore, but since the game is a massive grind fest, it won't be exactly a problem. Yeah, you heard that right, the game's very grindy. You'll visit different areas out there full of monsters that you can fight to grind, but you do not level up here, just like in the Saga games. Instead, after every battle, you might get some random status increases like HP, SP, attack, or a formation stat. Formation stats rely on the positioning of the characters during battle. These are played in turns, but you can change the formation before every player turn. In this example I'm showing you, the guy can act as a shield to reduce damage or completely block it when enemies attack the other 2 characters. He needs to be on front though, and you need to select the required ability during your turn. The game does lack a variety in formations though, but you can always create your own if you want to. Nothing, however, will change the fact that your stats will randomly increase after battle whenever. Exploration is all about completing the maps. Every area has multiple segments you'll need to 100%, so you can sell those maps at the store and get more money. The more complete they are, the more money you get, of course. Actually, the seller himself will also sell you maps, and that's how you'll make progress in this game. Anyway, going back to the exploration, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. Completing maps is entirely optional since the goal of the game is to find ruins or caves inside the areas, fight the major boss, and restore them. By exploring around, you'll also find items you can sell at the store. No crafting system exists here or anything of the sort, so feel free to sell anything you want. You'll also find these structures or statues that will give you a spell item. You equip it and have to use it in battle to learn the appropriate spell, but first, you'll have to do a contract with the corresponding element in every area. Yeah, it's a bit convoluted, but you'll get the hang of it eventually. This is a game that requires patience after all, a lot of it. Now, the big question. Were the problems the original 3DS game have fixed? Did the developers improve the gameplay mechanics? Maybe I should tell you first what problems I'm referring to. that got it its mixed reception. One of the biggest problems the original game had was that it was so hard to avoid the enemies. Often you'd get into battle because they were so fast to catch up with you after chasing you for a long time. Thankfully, the remaster fixed that, and now it's easier to avoid the enemies or fool them around with the scenery. Plus, they don't chase you as often, so that's a relief. As you've clearly been noticing, objects appear as you advance. Trees, bushes, rocks, it looks beautiful to be honest. However, enemies also appear in the same way, and sometimes you'll instantly run into them because of this. It's annoying, and the remaster did not fix that. Another issue that wasn't fixed is one that was so infuriating and ridiculous in the original version. Running away from a battle takes you back to the entrance of the dungeon or area, not to the entrance of any other segment or screen, no, to the freaking beginning of the place. Thankfully, you carry over any progress like map completion, items, and stat increases you got, and you know what, it's actually a great way to return to the entrance and then to town if you're tired or too hurt, but it shouldn't have to be like this. What if I want to simply escape from a battle and continue exploring exactly where I was? I'm not sure what kind of imbecile came up with this idea, and it's very disappointing that they didn't fix it. Yet another issue that wasn't fixed is the reward system. Almost every single Saga game, Romancing Saga, Saga Frontier, etc. have the same issue. There's absolutely no point in fighting multiple enemies. The game does not reward you for it. Stat increases at the end of battle are so random that you could get a lot simply by fighting one enemy. It's not like you'll get more if you fight more enemies. Nope. Which is why I told you that this game was a massive grind fest, since the bosses can be quite cheap and difficult. Yeah, often you'll die for not having received those stat increases multiple times. And there's only the 4 stats that I mentioned, HP, SP, that you use for some skills, attack power, and formation. No defense or resistance or agility, no. And to make matters even worse, the enemies seem to always start and often stun you, so your character won't be able to act in that turn. To learn abilities, well, it's also kinda random. Often you just have to use the same skill over and over again until a character finally decides to randomly learn a new ability. Well, this isn't a complaint, it's also seen in the Saga games and also in the follow-up successor to this game called The Alliance Alive. As a result of everything I've just ranted about, this game can be infuriating at times. I can't believe most of the problems weren't fixed and carried over as if nothing. Still though, exploration, combat, and interface were vastly improved, so at least it makes up for its flaws with that. Overall, I think this is a game most people won't be able to get into. It focuses too much on its exploration and grinding with not much to reward the player with. I didn't like the original 3DS version, but I did manage to appreciate it now with this remaster. I still think of it as a hidden gem, even though it's clearly not for everybody. Do I recommend it though? Yes, I do. This remaster, of course, unlike the 3DS original version. Just keep in mind everything that I said in this review. And that's all for today, guys. That was my review of Legend of Legacy HD Remaster for modern systems. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time! Mato Anomalies, a weird turn-based RPG on modern systems that surprised players with its release. It got a lukewarm reception unfortunately, but some initial issues it had were fixed. So now that I finally played it and finished it, I'm here to share my review based on the PS5 version. And also to tell you that, well, I may be the only person on the internet that liked this game. Apparently, this is an indie RPG. I'm honestly surprised because a lot of people worked on it, and even actors like Christina V joined the English cast, which is pretty damn good by the way. Whatever the case, it's a game by Chinese studio Arrowwiz. One extremely unique neo-noir story about a private detective named Doe. Yeah, like John Doe, except his name is just Doe, with adult dialogue and mature situations. Basically, it takes place in the future where a few cities are controlled by a unified government, robot police, and advanced AI. Yeah, a dystopia to say the least. However, underground layers created by the collective negative emotions of humanity have been born. The Bane Tide are bizarre metaphorical creatures that inhabit them, so Do has to do something about them because they're intrinsically connected to a horrible conspiracy in the real world. But he can't fight the Bane Tide. He meets Graham then, who can actually fight them, among other characters that will join as the game progresses. If it sounds like and looks like Persona to you, forget it. It did get a lot of comparisons to those games, but no, it is and plays vastly different from Persona. So in a nutshell, you'll be controlling Do in the different small places of Mato, each with different shops and bases of operations and NPCs, etc. The story will advance from there as you progress, including in these interesting comic-like sequences with terrible lip-sync, I admit, but you know what, that's okay. Visuals are beautiful and detailed for an alleged indie game. They certainly capture an atmosphere of noir detective story. I really like the graphics in this game, the art style, the character design. Some technical hiccups may be present like quick and short frame drops, but never hindering the experience. And the soundtrack is fantastic. It's pretty chill, combining blues with new wave, with relaxing sounds and instruments that fit the world pretty well. Very worth listening to outside of the game, as most of the town themes will easily grow on you. Even the battle themes start becoming interesting after several times, because at the beginning they might sound a little bit boring, but later, yeah, they grow on you. Maybe not the dungeon themes, which is my only musical complaint. Speaking about dungeons, the game was criticized because of its dungeon design, as it is kinda bland, repetitive and with regular puzzles, but I don't know, I liked it and I have no complaints with it. But yeah, every single dungeon has a similar layout to the one you're seeing right now. And of course, there are tons of optional and side quests layers that you'll traverse here. No random encounters exist, yeah. Enemies are stationary though and act as roadblocks. You need to defeat most of them to make progress, but there aren't too many and they don't respawn unless you exit the dungeon and return. Combat is turn-based with up to 4 active allies, but, well, check this out. Everyone shares the same HP bar. Yeah! They all have individual stats, of course, but those stats only stack to create a consensus for the health bar. As a result, the game's ridiculously difficult even on normal mode, and also as a result, the game's a grindfest. There are easy and hard modes as well, and an auto battle feature. Anyway, every character can equip 1 or 2 different types of weapons and their skills will vary because of that, but all of them have a bunch of native skills since the beginning. However, every single skill has a cooldown that can last for a few turns, and that cooldown carries over after battle, so keep that in mind. Don't worry though, as each character has a regular attack with no cooldown whatsoever, so it'll always be available. And of course, enemies have strengths and weaknesses to certain types of attacks, which is also another reason why the game's incredibly difficult. But there is no defend option in the menu, so you'll have to rely on buffs, debuffs, and dodge stats to avoid damage. Finally, everyone has an individual special attack for massive damage that fills up with that purple bar as you attack and receive damage, but using one character's special attack depletes it. That's right, just like the HP bar, this purple bar is also shared amongst the party. You also need to be strategic about that and decide which character's special attack is best for this or that situation. Overall, I really like this combat despite being incredibly difficult. Skill trees are available for every character. Every time you level up, everyone will get 1 skill point that you can use to unlock new passive or battle abilities. Like I said before, and as you can see, everyone's got their own stats. Then there's the gear system. You'll find different gears in the dungeons that have different buffs and status increases, and you'll be able to equip up to 9 of them. These ultimately affect the shared HP bar the entire party has. The interface looks easy to use, but it's not. It's a bit of a chore to unequip gears or replace them, to be honest, but you know what, it's just a minor complaint. Anyway, there are 2 more things to explain about this game. Do can't fight in the layers, but he can definitely do so in the real world. Sometimes to make an NPC talk or get information out of them, though we'll play this weird turn-based card system with them. In here, enemies will attack you during their turn, but their stats and actions are determined by those spheres you see there, which are the demons. You have 3 action points to attack per turn, and each card, be it a defense stack buff or a skill or a regular attack, costs points. Once you've used them up, it's time to end your turn and decide if you want to keep the cards you didn't use or reshuffle the deck. This combat was heavily criticized by reviewers, and I clearly see why. It's convoluted, difficult, with tons of weird explanations about persuasion powers and whatnot, and tons of cryptic penalties for the cards and the demons. Thankfully, after 3 attempts, each battle can be skipped without affecting the story whatsoever or any penalties to your playthrough whatsoever. You know, it's like the developers knew this combat will make the world complain about it. So thanks to this skip feature, I've no real complaints with this combat, but it feels frustrating to have to skip it because you couldn't figure out how to win, and the easy mode doesn't seem to apply to them. These battles are excruciatingly hard and cryptic no matter what. So overall, I have no real major complaints, except for one: the dialogue. It's a modern game, so that means it has some political crap here and there, but with it being such an obscure RPG, I couldn't find if the localization team was responsible for it, or the writers themselves wrote it like this. Miss, for example, I'm pretty sure it was developed as a lesbian character regardless of the translation, but Butterfly, for example, she can act in a very strange way around her sometimes, so I don't know what's going on there. Thankfully, all of this doesn't ruin the experience, and there's barely any modern political remarks throughout the story, unlike other RPGs nowadays. Though I admit that the story is the best part of it, including Edelweiss as my favorite character. I love this woman. It's very hard to follow. It's intellectual, philosophical, like Xenogears for example, but also 10 times more confusing. That's yet another big criticism the game received. People out there saying it makes no sense. Well, it made sense to me, not 100% because, as I mentioned, sometimes it was just hard to follow, but most major events and plot points were easily understood by me. I think it's because I've read, watched and played through stories like these many times before. I was definitely the target audience for this game, well, maybe except for its confusing wokenized crap. But apart from that, it's got excellent narrative. I really like this game. The visuals, the music, the combat, and I still can't believe it was done by an independent studio. I can see why a lot of reviewers out there trashed it, including a lot of players and fans of it, but man, I just thought they went overboard. The game's nowhere near as bad as they make it out to be, in my opinion. I do recommend it, even though I see it's not gonna be for everybody. But hopefully, if you decide to play it, you'll still be able to appreciate it for what it is. It's available on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, Nintendo Switch, and of course, PC. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time!